Okay, and we should be live. Welcome back to the Crypto Factor. My name is Paul, and today I'm here with Kevin Murcko of Coin Metro. We're going to be talking about the markets, talking about regulations, talking about exchanges. We're going to be talking about Coin Metro. We're going to be talking about cryptocurrencies, a whole bunch of things. Kevin, thank you for being here, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Great intro. Let's get going. Let's do this.
Yeah, and a quick shout out to Paul. I can't remember his second name right now. It's off my head, but that actually got us together doing this. Big shout out. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I would probably butcher the last name. Begins with a B. We'll say Paul B.
Paul B.
But yeah, definitely put this together. So thank you, Paul.
Sounds like a rapper. I used to rap. I used to have like my rapper name used to be Paul B. By the way, let me turn down the light here.
Well,
Paul D.
Small world.
Paul D. So he's
Paul
B.
D.
So we might do like a rap collaboration. So yeah. So Kevin is the CEO and owner of Coin Metro. If you start putting your questions in the chat, we will be doing an AMA answering your questions later on this video. But I do want to pick his brain right now. I do want to ask him about the markets. But I do want to say hi to Hassan. I want to say hi to Angenienska, which sounds maybe Estonian, maybe Russian, maybe something. I want to say hi to Roman. I see Jens. I see Luke. I see so many people here already having questions in the chat. That's really exciting. That's really cool. That means we're going to have a lot to answer. So by the end of this live stream, people are going to be opening up their own exchanges.
Competition's a good thing, so bring it on.
But so let me ask you a quick question before we get into Coin Metro, before we get into your history, because I'm going to ask you some questions about you as well. What's going on with the crypto markets? We saw a massive dip. First of all, you have an exchange. Did you buy the dip?
Did I buy the dip? Depends on which dip you're talking about. But I used to be an active trader for years, mainly in FX, and I love to trade. But when you trade, you need to be very laser focused. So when you have too much stuff going on in your life and you're trying to focus on, charts or fundamentals, you're probably going to make a mistake. So I haven't been an active trader in years, but I definitely buy dips. Not every dip, but I definitely buy dips. That's for sure.
Got you. But as an exchange, what are people buying most? Because people are buying the dip, so people are probably buying on exchange. Is there a way for you to know what they're buying, what coins they're buying?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think most exchanges, number one is always going to be, it's the same top dogs that you're going to see on CoinMarketCap. You're going to see a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of Ethereum. Bitcoin, just like it owns 50, 60, 70% of the market, depending on, the day you may check, it usually owns 50, 60, 70% of the volume as well. So Bitcoin's usually the number one choice for most newbies as well as old school veterans in crypto, because that's where liquidity is. It makes sense. But when you talk about, let's say, altcoins, micro caps, mid caps, small caps, we have a few, I think, gems that a lot of people flood into. That we've seen a lot of volume on quant lately.
Quant.
We've seen QNT, quant, in interoperability for central banks.
Okay.
Quite an interesting project. It's been around for some time now. It just started really to catch fire. I think we listed it at something like €3. It's now up to 40 euros.
Oh wow!
So they've been doing quite well. It's a solid. It's not a project. It's a business. And we've seen a decent amount of volume around PRQ, around Parsec, another I would say gem out in the market. Our listing strategy is a lot different than most. So we don't list everything or anything. We don't list because you pay us. In fact, we don't charge you to get listed. We list things where we can have collaborative efforts with those businesses, meaning either we're going to work on projects together, work on potential dev together, we're going to build products together, or simply that we have a very similar mission and we work together to kind of benefit the lives of everybody in both communities. So because of that, a lot of the things that tend to pop and then usually die, we don't list. So, most of the things that you may see, do a 400% and then end up at 0 3 weeks later, we don't touch those. And we really actively look for businesses that have legs that we feel that, in the future will do well. And obviously we look for things that are going to appreciate over time. So, but in terms of overall volume, I think all exchanges are the same. Bitcoin is still the top dog, at least for now.
Got you. By the way, you in the chat, tell me if you bought the dip, tell me what you bought, put it in the chat. I'm really curious to know. And the question that's on everybody's mind right now, and you're going to either break a lot of hearts and people are going to start crying, or you're going to say something that's going to make them happy. We're going to cry anyway. But do you have XRP on your exchange?
We do.
You do have XRP in your exchange. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So the XRP army and the XRP hodlers and people that hold and invest in XRP will be happy to know
So
that it's available.
I'll tell you why, if you like, because I think a lot of people. So, you know, when it comes to a business, right, I don't necessarily need to like something to list it. It has to have merit to list it. I don't need to like it. So my personal opinions aside, XRP has a current, you know, they have an issue right now with the SEC. They have a civil lawsuit.
Yeah.
That civil lawsuit could end up going a million ways, but I read the entire lawsuit. They actually don't call XRP a security. They claim that it was sold like a security. And they're probably right. But a judge hasn't done it, hasn't said anything yet. There's no precedent. There's absolutely no risk for me to list XRP, and I see no reason to delist it. There's no reason to delist XRP. I think exchanges that went that route did it because of either personal reasons or they simply didn't take the time. Yeah, they didn't take the time to read the actual lawsuit. So we've had XRP listed since we launched, I think, or pretty close to it, and we haven't delisted it, and we won't unless there is specific judicial precedent that calls XRP a security. And even if that were to happen, we do have, by then, I would assume we already have our MTF license, so we'd still be able to list it. Not only that, though, we do have a sandbox license in Montenegro that we can house securities under. So we probably still wouldn't delist it. We would just have to make some moves on our side to maintain.
Right. Well, I was actually, I was a holder of XRP since 2017. I sold most of my XRP on profit at around $3 and $2.50 and so on. And then what I did was a couple of months ago, I saw it actually break support again. And I'm like, you know what, this ain't good, and I sold. And then right after that, the SEC lawsuit came out, and that was devastated. And I pretty much said, you know, I put my money into SNX and some things and some other things, and I said, you know what, I'll get back into XRP if it breaks 72 cents, closes above, and or if there's clarity. You know, I mean, mostly if there was clarity. I saw XRP, you know, close over 72 cents, so I got back in. Actually, I got a little bit more than what was left over in my bag. It went up again, and now I put 1/3 of that in profits in Cardano. But you know, to each his own. But I have a love-hate relationship with the XRP army. I make fun of them a lot because I just don't get what I was talking about.
To be honest,
like, you know what I mean? So it's funny.
Exactly.
So if you hear any jokes about the XRP army, you know it's because of that. So what kind of exchanges are there? First of all, the exchanges that did not list or delisted is about what I was actually going to say. XRP were mostly American, if not all American. Does that play a vital role or a vital part in this?
Well, I think it's risk mitigation. So, you know, you make a business decision for your business based on where risk lies. And as a business, there's always risk everywhere, right? You have risk in everything you do.
Right.
And you make decisions based on whether that risk goes past your risk threshold, just like a trader would when he trades. So for me, I think Coinbase was probably one of the biggest that delisted, but Coinbase had a better reason than most.
I think they had a grudge.
Well, they're also they were going after an IPO at the time. And what you don't want to do when you go after an IPO is have any skeletons in the closet. You'll notice right before they did the direct listing, right before they announced it, they actually settled with the SEC on other matters for like 6 or 7 million. So they wanted to get all the skeletons, well, not all of them, because we know there's probably way more skeletons in the closet, but at least the public ones, they wanted those out of the way so that they could have a fresh path to IPO. And I think when other exchanges that may not have the same foresight, understanding, legal prowess, whatever, as a Coinbase or as other exchanges saw Coinbase delist and thought, if they're de-risking, maybe we're going to de-risk as well. There's also, you know, maybe some of those exchanges didn't do a lot of volume on XRP. So if there's risk and no revenue, well, then it's an easy decision. You delist. Right. For us, you know, there's revenue, and I don't see any. We have no physical presence in the US. Even if we did, to be fair, I don't see currently a regulatory or legal risk by listing XRP. There's been, again, no legal precedent. So at this point, it's no different than having listed it 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And nothing's changed until that judge hits his gavel and says whatever he's going to say.
Yeah, this is going to take some time. I don't think there'll be clarity in May either. So I do think that now that we broke that resistance, I think that just goes to show that as a trader, you're a trader. I used to trade Forex and teach Forex trading. I think that XRP has a good road in front of them, unless you know, they just start dumping or something. That's a different story. Okay, so what kind of exchanges are there? There are different, and we are diving in the exchanges real quick. What type of exchanges are there out there? Are there different types of exchanges in crypto?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have, your centralized exchanges where CoinMetro would fall, which is basically a centralized, we hold assets, we hold people's assets on custody. They trade in an order book, a matching engine, and they trade against one another and or against liquidity providers. Mm-hmm. You then have decentralized exchanges, which go by the acronym DEXs. And at a DEX, you are trading basically in a decentralized order book, and you're trading against decentralized settlement, which means that you can be trading with some other anonymous person on some other corner of the globe, mm-hmm. and a simple smart contract is basically dictating how things are filled. Now, there are also hybrids, and I think the future is probably a hybrid model, yeah. At least the near future, simply because when it comes to things like KYC, AML, all those things that nobody likes to hear. And when I first came into crypto on a professional level, 2016, 17, I was the only guy talking about KYC and AML. Yeah. And I would go to all these events, and all these guys with man buns and tattoos would laugh and say that everything was so innovative that it was never going to happen, and that the regulators were never going to be able to touch crypto. And I said, okay, sure, we'll see. And the fact is that I don't want to live in a world either where anonymous dirty money can change hands, and then potentially something happens in the world that could have been prevented. Now, I'm not saying that happens a lot through decentralized exchanges. The point is that
anyway. Because correct, you can't want to get their hands on it, and they can't for whatever reason. They can't KYC through a bank because they live in a country that's weird, right?
Yeah, or they just don't want to, which is it's your right to have your own privacy, and I have no problem with privacy whatsoever. But at the end of the day, the regulator looks at the things the way they look at things. So they will start to enforce KYC, some type of centralization on DEXs at some point. When that happens, then you weigh your options. You have, a decentralized order book, at least under current technology, kind of sucks. You get front run all over the place. Yeah. You have really no real transparency into that book. And while it has its pros, it has a lot of cons. And so if you can have a system where you can have decentralized settlement, so people can trade against each other anonymously, but you do so through a centralized order book, that's probably the best of both worlds. And I think that's generally where the institutional money and the retail, which will follow, will probably end up over the next few years. My vision is kind of, which is always happens, if I haven't in FX actually. So if you remember FX back in the late 90s, unregulated. FX then became highly regulated. Lots of places like Refco went out of business. Refco was like the Binance of FX, right? They did tons of volume. They had no regulation. They said no one was going to touch them. Regulation came in. They blew up. They got destroyed, and they got sold off in pieces. And then you started to get really heavy regulation in FX, and slowly but surely it got less and less and less over time. Then, well, the industry kind of went the wrong way, and it got heavy again. Regulation got heavy because the industry simply didn't do a good job at self-regulating itself. In crypto, we're going down that same path. No regulation, maybe not heavy regulation, because I think regulators have learned from the past that doesn't necessarily work. But into regulation, it's kind of like you have to swim up, excuse my French, a river of shit to kind of get to the end, get to the ocean. And to do that, it's kind of get regulated to become unregulated. That's the path that I think crypto in general will take. So for the next years, we are going to go through some regulation. That's absolutely for sure.
I also think that's where a lot of DeFi projects are going to shine as well. A lot of DeFi projects are already being built because of that, so they can be able to I don't know if you have any on top of your head, but so they can be able to intermediate this, because DeFi is not, my vision is, well, I've said this before and people made fun of me, but DeFi's place is not just decentralized and KYC. I think DeFi's place is actually in centralized entities, if you will, because I do have the same opinion as you do. But we'll see.
Just on the DeFi point, I think that Bitcoin started DeFi, right? That was the first decentralized financial tool that really mass populace started to use, because Bitcoin is decentralized. In fact, more so, I would say, than Ethereum, in case of just pure decentralization. So Bitcoin being decentralized started it. Now we have DeFi is kind of, I think you have this kind of subset. You have people like me and you. We're kind of, we're not that young, not that old. But we're not that young, and we've been around the bend. We've been in FX, been in other markets. Okay, sorry, I apologize. I'll wear the old guy hat. It's fine. We both lost hair in FX. I can tell that's obvious. So
Actually,
we
this was
definitely
my nightclub, but anyway.
yeah. So, DeFi, I think, is the new guys that come into the market have a vision of what DeFi is. Yeah. And I think the guys that are older that came from traditional markets have another vision for what DeFi is. And we'll see who wins out. But I think at the end of the day, look, every bank and I think the term bank is going to change. So what my granddaughters are going to think banking is much different than what I think a bank is currently, or what my grandfather thought a bank was. So, but when it comes to banks, every bank whether it be JP Morgan, UBS, Credit Suisse, HSBC, they will all go decentralized to a certain extent. Why? Well, the banking became as big as it is. Well, finance becomes as big as it is because they close doors to people. So they create clubs, like old gentlemen's clubs, basically, is what old finance creates. And they create barriers. Those barriers lock wealth. They lock wealth. The stock market, all these things are created to kind of funnel wealth from the bottom to the top.
Of course.
And that's how finance has been created since ever. Now we have a system that you can gain access to very similar products that traditional finance, rich people in traditional finance have had access to for literally 100 years. Yeah. You may not realize that, but everything in DeFi already exists. There's nothing that DeFi does right now that traditional finance doesn't do. It may do it slightly faster, and in some cases very much faster. And it may do it slightly different. But there's nothing different between DeFi and traditional finance. What the big difference is access.
Access. It gives
so
you access.
Rather than all the rich guys in their clubs having access, everyone has access. And you'll notice with banking and finance, when that happens, FX was a closed market. It became an open market. Lots of people flooded into FX.
Right.
You've had derivatives were closed market. Options used to be a closed market. Eventually, once it opens up, and there's no way to stop it, the banks adapt, the brokers adapt, and they allow access, and they adapt their own business models. So banks will decentralize, hedge funds will decentralize. All these things will decentralize to a certain extent. Again, hybrid, probably at first. But the current DeFi market, there's a lot of bullshit. I would say a high percentile is absolute nonsense. You're getting paid in a worthless asset, and the only reason it goes up is because everybody's holding that worthless asset, trying to cash out at the highest price. Everybody cashes out, rug pull, buy. And that's 90-something% in a DeFi. But that's not a bad thing, because in new products, especially in finance, 90% fail. That's literally every business. If you open a coffee shop, 90%, you're going to fail. If you try to become a doctor when you're 14 and go to college, 90%, you're going to fail. That's literally like a number that just goes across all of human interaction, 80-90%. So it's fine that happens, but DeFi is going to be huge, but not what we see now. What we see now, I think, for the most part, except for protocol level stuff, is mainly nonsense.
Do you see a lot of demand for DeFi projects on the exchange, or is it other kind of? What is your take on this?
So I'm a fan of DeFi in terms of the decentralization in general, because traditional finance sucks because it's antiquated and slow, and a lot of that is because of intermediaries. So the whole financial system's built on trust. Well, I'll say trust, and it's the way they built in trust back in the day was let's get more dudes in the circle. This way, they build consensus basically. If you got 20 dudes, if one dude's bad, it's fine. The other 19 dudes are good. That's basically the whole premise. Gatekeepers, banks, they get your ID so that you get into you can get into the financial market. They know who you are. Now you can play around a bit. Anyway, so the decentralization is needed because decentralization and consensus and all these things will streamline markets and make markets just better all around. So I'm a big fan. However, most of the projects that currently exist in DeFi, I think won't exist in a few years to come. Just like most utility tokens that went through ICOs that everybody thought were going to change the world no longer exist or are pretty much just dead in the water. For us, we have DeFi projects that we're working with right now. We're working with companies like Cadena, working with companies like Zelcore, with Zell Network and their FLUX token to build hybrid decentralized systems that can interact between multiple parties that have the best of all worlds, best of centralization, best of decentralization. When it comes to crypto, it's not like everybody's in crypto yet, right? So, your grandma still is not in crypto, your brother, your mother, whoever, they're still not in crypto. They need fiat on and off ramps. Those are centralized. they need a place that if money gets stolen from them, it'll get recouped. If they get phished on a decentralized exchange, nobody's coming to give them their money back.
Yeah.
There's not going to be an exchange, there's not going to be an insurance mechanism, etc. So, so we're trying to build the best world. So we haven't necessarily listed DeFi assets yet. I can almost guarantee you we will. Up to this point, though, we've been looking to try and find a play for us internally that we can partner with other companies to create a more sustainable DeFi that's kind of a hybrid model.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Let me just check out the chat real quick and see if we have any questions. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Kevin Murcko. We're talking to why are you laughing, man? We're talking to Kevin
So long day. It's fine.
We're the CEO and founder of Coin Metro. We're talking about exchanges, markets, what we see coming, everything that's going on. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. Unless you're wondering, I'm looking over there because the chat's over there, by the way. So ask them in the chat. And yeah, man, I see a lot of people here asking different questions. I'll go through them. Someone's saying buy XCM before it hits double digits. I guess XCM, well, I actually know it is, but get XCM being your own token. So your exchange has its own token?
Correct. Yeah, we do have an exchange token. Obviously, we're not the only exchange with a token. We weren't the first either. Though this year we've seen as far as the percentage gain on that token, more percentage gain than any other exchange token, and that's BNB included. Obviously, their price point looks a little prettier, but in terms of percentage gains, we beat them out so far this year. Look, I think it back in 2017-18, when the whole premise of utility tokens came to light, if there wasn't a more perfect use of a utility token than embedded into an exchange ecosystem, I don't know. I honestly can't give you a better example. Why? Because the market needs exchanges. No matter what you're doing, you need an exchange. Whether you have the most innovative, you could be sending rockets to Mars on your token. You still need a place to transact it.
Right.
So, having a place to transact and the more tokenomics, the more utility built into that exchange ecosystem, especially the more it benefits the end user. I think it's just a perfect use case. So absolutely, yeah, we do have a token XCM. I think we started the year at 4 cents. We're now up to 57, almost 60 cents, euro cents. And climbing a little bit every day. So I like to wake up in the morning. Sorry?
Is it listed on other exchanges or just Coin Metro?
It's not, and I'll give you an explanation why. So I'm an old school markets guy, and I've been around a lot of dual listings. In fact, I participated in a few dual listings over the years. Dual listings, people don't know from the traditional space, is normally when you get listed on something like NASDAQ or the Dow or the CAC or the FTSE or the Nikkei, you list on one exchange. If you're a company in Japan, you're listed on the Nikkei. If you're a company, if you get big enough, you may end up listing elsewhere. But there's a thing called a dual listing, where immediately you list on 2 separate exchanges and you try to leverage volume and liquidity from 2 exchanges. A lot of times you try to create arbitrage opportunities to pull liquidity in one direction. There's actually something called brown shoe, green shoe from traditional market making. I'm not going to get into that because that's not what we're talking about today, but you can look it up. It's actually quite interesting. You can see how what I just talked about, money moving from kind of the poor to the rich in stock market. That's going to tell you one of the tricks that they use to move money from poor to rich and from the rich outwardly to other rich people. But anyway, so I digress. So when we are an exchange, our token holds a utility, lots of utility, many utilities, but on our exchange. Now you can see what's happening with XRP right now. They're getting hit with the fact that they actively went out and listed a token on multiple exchanges and market made the token in a way that the SEC considers to be, against the law. Now, we're an exchange, it's a utility token, it's a proven utility token. But if we go out and actively try and list it elsewhere, it either becomes e-money, which is a regulated, in Europe, which is regulated, or it ends up becoming treated like a security because we're going after multiple listings with kind of consent. What we're trying to do is basically increase either price or some way try to create additional volume on the token by way of manipulating. So we've stuck with the model that we think it's best, that we bring all volume, all liquidity into Coin Metro. That's where the utility is. If you're buying XCM, hopefully you're reaping the benefits of the utility. Now, decentralized, well, not even decentralized exchanges.
How about DEXs?
They can list, anybody can list anything at a decentralized exchange, and we're absolutely listed on decentralized exchanges, but that we did not list, but that others just went and listed and created a pool. That's happened. And eventually, I'm sure centralized exchanges will list us as well. There will come a point where that's going to happen, and we can't stop them from doing it, but we're not going to actively go after. I don't see, many people saw major benefits during the ICO bubble. Everybody wanted to get on 30 exchanges, but that takes an illiquid asset by its very nature and spreads it thin.
Right.
It's not the best, it's really not the best strategy, especially if you're looking for long-term stable markets.
So I want to talk more about your coin, your cryptocurrency later on. I also want to ask you about your roadmap. I got questions. I got a lot of questions here, and I see them about Coin Metro, where it's going, where it's heading, where it's at, where and all that. But I want to ask you a few questions that I get a lot, and one of them is, how does OTC work, and do you do OTC at Coin Metro?
Sure. So I'm again old school guy. So the term OTC really bugs me when used in crypto, because the entire market is OTC. OTC simply means that there's no centralized counterparty that creates a price. And so, like for instance, FX is an OTC market. There's no FX hub that sends out pricing for USD and euro and pounds. Every single exchange or broker builds their pricing based on their own order book. That makes it an OTC market. And FX and crypto are very similar in terms of how they're priced. So crypto is an OTC market in general.
So
but
under the
when
table
we talk,
trading.
Yeah. When we talk about OTC, obviously,
trading.
When we talk about OTC and crypto, though, we generally talk about off book, right? You're trading off book, you're basically doing a small dark pool transaction, right? You're trading outside of the book. So we do. We don't necessarily publicize that we do OTC, but we do have clients, and we have clients of clients that sometimes. Because we have, very good fiat on-ramps, so we have, instant ACH in the US. So if you're sitting in the US and you want to make a bank deposit, it's instantaneous. Same thing in the EU with instant SEPA. Euros come to us instantaneously, 10, 20 seconds, they're on your account. Pounds, faster payments in the UK. So because of that, we do get people that approach us and say, look, I have an associate, or I need to make a purchase, or I want to purchase Bitcoin, but I'd rather do it outside the book. Yeah. So absolutely, we do arrange OTC deals from time to time, and eventually we probably will add it into our product suite, but that requires also a desk, which we currently don't operate. So because we're an OT, we're over the counter. We're not only just over the counter, right, but we're STP, right? We don't market making our own book. So we try to align our values with the values of our clients. We don't want to trade against our clients. When they lose, we make money. We only make money when they trade. We don't make money when they lose.
Could someone come to Coin Metro, or I guess another exchange as well, with a suitcase full of money and say, I want to buy so much Bitcoin with this?
With a suitcase full of cash? No. Well, I guess theoretically.
Briefcase.
Well, briefcase, sorry. So less money.
I was about to say, there's not so much.
Theoretically, yes. However, there are protocols we would have to take from a regulation standpoint when we get cash. We don't necessarily do those type of transactions. However, if that type of transaction were to come, it's possible. However, to be honest, doing it over banking rails, even though that might not be the first choice for some people, definitely streamlines a lot of that process. And also protects our company and protects the person actually making the transaction as well.
Well, there's a lot of people that are in crypto that don't want to go through the bank, and it's not always necessarily money that's illegal or anything like that. And maybe they don't want their country government to know about it, for example, which would theoretically be illegal in their country. But for example, China, or maybe Iran. Maybe some people need
to. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think people fail to realize a lot of times that, like, a criminal act doesn't mean that morally you think it's criminal. So most people think if, saving some money on your taxes or not giving money to a corrupt government sounds like a pretty good idea. I mean, not giving money to a corrupt government sounds like a good thing to me. But in that country, that is a criminal act.
Yeah, pretty much.
So as a regulated exchange, obviously, we need to make sure that if that type of transaction happens, that it's legal on both sides. Yeah. If not, we can't take part, because it puts us at risk, it puts the client at risk, but it also puts all of our other clients at risk. Yeah. Because if there's some regulatory action against us, that could mean frozen assets of everybody, and that's definitely something we don't want to see. So like what happened? Well, I don't know what rumor happened at OKCoin, months back, right?
Yeah.
Went offline for months because of a proposed regulatory.
That was it? Or something like that?
That was the rumor. I don't know if that's the case, but that was the rumor. So.
So I asked you about XRP earlier on, if it's gonna, and you already have it listed. Do you have things listed like, I don't know, safemoon or elongate?
No.
Why?
Why? So funny enough, I was on a call today with a few investors, and one person mentioned safemoon. Funny enough, and I had never heard of it. So I literally opened the page, I clicked on white paper and read three lines from three different paragraphs and said, run away. And the investor asked me why. And I said, well, this is an asset, if you want to call it that, with no utility, no underlying value. They literally, their entire ecosystem, the first thing it said was, step one, we minted, I don't know, about 1 trillion tokens or something like that. And we immediately burned the dev tokens. So they created tokens just to burn them. I guess assuming that people are going to be stupid enough to think that
Well,
that added some value. Yeah. And so that was my red flag number one. But there's so many assets like that well, there were assets like that in the ICO bubble, and there are assets like that now in the DeFi bubble. And they're basically assets that have no value. The underlying asset has no value. The protocol has no value. The system has no value. The value is it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, simply because people buy in and hold, waiting for a price, and then eventually people sell, capitulation happens, and it goes to zero. So it's as close as you can get to a pump and dump scheme or, a financial fraud. That it's anonymous financial fraud is what it is.
And I think you don't want to risk your reputation on a coin that you're not sure about, and that's why a lot of people list coins once they go up in price, once there's some time that passed, once it's have some proven, not because they don't want to give it to people, but they don't want to risk their reputation and have all this, lose people basically. You
exactly.
Can't just do that.
It's not even just about reputation. It's about jail time, because we are a regulated exchange. And so, we have to be careful with what we vet. That doesn't mean everything we put on the exchange is going to do well. That's up to this point, we've done quite well. I mean, things that we listed have done well, but that's not going to happen every time. But definitely things like that are, I would say, in my eyes, obvious. It literally took me 10 seconds to say no, and that's not a good sign. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm not the dumbest, and it took me 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think everybody likes to make money, myself included. Making money is nice. Making money fast, even nicer. But knowing that you're making money fast on the back of someone else who's going to lose it just as fast, and the fact that this doesn't help the industry as a whole, because I'm the guy that's out there talking to regulators, and I get the heat about, look at this nonsense. Look at your industry. Look what your industry does. Look what your industry allows. Why should we allow this? I'm the one that has to defend that. And I don't defend it. But I have to try and defend the rest of the industry and say that it's valuable enough. And there's many people like me in this industry now that have to take the burden for these kind of ridiculous stunts that happen. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help the industry as a whole. It really doesn't.
Right. So let's segue right there. What's the difference between a regulated exchange, unregulated exchange, and what is like the goods and the bads, if you will, and the plus and minuses of them?
Okay, so I'll take it from a few angles. So I'll take you the business angle first. So me as an exchange owner, right? Anybody out there that wants to own an exchange, it's tough. But outside of that, anybody that thinks they might or they want to aspire to own an exchange. So from the business angle.
Right.
From the business angle, being unregulated is awesome because you can do whatever you want. So you have it's kind of like when you were a kid and your parents went away for the weekend and left you the keys to the car. It's mayhem, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And, you pay for the consequences later, right? That's an unregulated exchange. It might be fun for a while, but eventually you're going to crash dad's car and then you're grounded for like the next 30 years, right? That's how it works out. So from a business angle, that can be comfy for quite some time. On the business side, on the regulated side, initially it's difficult because you're restricted to what you can do. And your clients don't necessarily understand why you're restricted. And thus they look at it in a different light. And it takes time to build a reputation to the point where they then understand why, and they trust your instincts or your decisions, right? From the client side, it's similar. So a decentralized exchange there's probably a lot of tokens to trade. You can probably trade just about anything, which can be good or bad, depending on how good you are at, picking where you place your money. There's also many of them, the bigger ones tend to have some type of insurance mechanism because they made so much money that they have they have enough money where they can potentially cover. And that's good, but they are unregulated, so they don't have to.
Right.
They could just tell you no, which is also a bit of a hindrance, I think. So, from the regulated exchange standpoint, as a client, if an exchange is regulated, not just regulated, but also operate in a way that you feel is, honest and transparent, because there are businesses, we've all seen them, that have been regulated, that have gone and defrauded their clients. Regulation isn't a blanket to say that somebody is an honest person. But so do your own research, just like everybody always says. But when it comes, if a company's regulated and they're doing the right thing and they're operating in a transparent way, you can trust probably that if something were to happen, it's in their best interest to get their business back on track. If they get hacked, if there's some type of malfeasance, if you can't gain access to your account and you lose your money, and you may go out and start saying that it's a bad exchange because they're going to have probably a more willingness to help you, because they want to keep that kind of name that they've created and spent time and money and effort to create. Where the one that's not regulated may not care. They may not care at all, actually. In fact, they may just tell you just to kind of walk off, take a long walk off a short pier. And in the long run, regulation will win. At least in the long run, over the next, I would say 1 to 5 years, we are going to see more and more regulation, and that regulation is going to become so tight that a lot of the unregulated exchanges will cease to exist. And you're going to see insurance come in. So if you live in the US, you have things like FDIC. If you live in the UK, you have the Omnibus insurance. If you live other parts of Europe, you have things that are similar from the ECB and from your local countries. Other parts of the world, same thing. So we will see that type of insurance on crypto exchanges, regulated crypto exchanges. That will come. It will have to come. In fact, I think the US might be one of the first countries to do it under the OCC and the FDIC. And that's going to be a big step forward. And so, it's kind of the same thing. It's crazy that people trust the unregulated exchanges when in their normal day-to-day lives, if the same kind of situation presented itself, they wouldn't trust it. It's kind of like you have a Ferrari and you show up at let's call it an unregulated mechanic. The guy comes out and you go, so are your mechanics, have they studied? Then, nah, bro.
I never thought about it that
we got no certification, absolutely nothing. We're cheaper though. And just leave your car, leave the keys, it's fine. Nobody would leave the Ferrari there. They would spend more money. They would drive halfway across town, across the country even, to leave it at the certified mechanic. And that's just one stupid example. There's a lot of you can make up in your mind all other examples.
I'll give you a very good example. It's like taking a car to a gas station, but it doesn't matter. And you put gas in, and you end up losing your money you put in and everything like a DEX. You know how many fees I've lost on Uniswap?
Yeah,
on 1 inch today, actually.
Yeah. That's another. I mean, you have to assume that over time that's going to rectify itself. Sure. However, the thing is that you're dealing. You're dealing with a financial institution that has absolutely no obligation towards your funds. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, because what happens when something happens, and something will happen? Well, nothing happens, because there's no one to complain to. There's no one to ask. There's no repercussions. It's crazy. It kind of mimics the, I guess, original kind of mentality of crypto, which was, anarchists. So, kind of people that wanted to change the system. The crazy thing is everything that happens now in crypto as we're moving forward is getting more and more like, basically everybody wants to become a bank. People that do like a collateralized lending and all these things. Even many DeFi protocols and how they operate, with how they actually move, let's say, rewards or fees or staking, and they move it back through the pool and keep a percentage. All that stuff even the way some of these protocols are traded are very similar to the things that banks do in general. So it's crazy to see, and it was a prediction I made back in 2017 that basically crypto and blockchain in general was going to be a tool in the tool belt to traditional finance. I have a question for the audience, and I've asked this. If people have seen my AMAs, I've asked before, but nobody knows the answer to this one most of the time, and it's crazy when you find out what it is. So people like to say that crypto is going to take. I've heard a lot of people say crypto is going to take over traditional finance. That traditional finance is going to go away, and DeFi and all these things are going to take it over. So anybody out there, or even Paul included, anybody out there know what the yearly amount of settled security, just securities markets, not bonds, just securities, settled securities 1 year, worldwide? What is it?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
So it's close to 2 quadrillion US dollars. 2 quadrillion. So let's take the 2 trillion market cap of crypto. Now that's not settlements. So settlements would be all volume. So if we even assume that that the crypto market does $1 trillion a day in volume, which it doesn't, that's 356 trillion a year. It would still take you 100 years to reach 1 year's worth of security transactions. And so the cold reality is crypto and DeFi will not take over traditional finance. But what will happen is traditional finance will take all the benefits and all the good things about crypto and DeFi and blockchain, and they will change the way they do business. Our job as people that are in the market is to make sure they change in a way that's transparent and that benefits the people and not the guys at the top. And to do that, we need to create enough pressure and enough competition in the private sector so that, and the smaller private sector, your SMEs, your crypto exchanges, your wallets, etc. We need to do a good enough job. We need to excel at being honest, regulated, and transparent companies so that when we get to the point that that really starts to happen, they don't screw us like they've been screwing us for the last 100 years.
Got you. So what about these ready-made white label exchanges people can do? What's the story with that? Is that the real deal? Can someone actually do that? Is it something that's okay? Or what's the story with those?
So you've been in FX, you know that the white label FX business was probably booming like early 2000s into mid 2000s. Literally everybody and their grandmother had an FX broker at one point, and they all went to Cyprus, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like 200 brokers on Cyprus at some point. So you can, yes, but I think it's underestimating the complexity of running what I would call a professional exchange. So, I think most people look at it and say, well, I just get a liquidity provider, so I get a price feed. I smack the price feed into this white label, people trade on it, and I make sure I have, I don't know, collateral somewhere so that trades get executed. And well, from a very high level, like from space, that's about what the business is. But as you come down from space and realize, and as you get more granular, the business is highly complex, very high. When I was in the FX business, we sold white labels from my FX broker. We were very picky at who we sold to. We would probably have 30 to 50 inquiries a day about white labels. We sold 1 or 2 a year. And it's simply because it takes a lot of effort from us to be able to roll out a white label. And we also don't want companies using white labels that just blow up and die. And the percentage of white labels I've seen blow up is literally 100%. I have never seen either, it's one of two things: white label, and they immediately get out of the white label and become a professional exchange, hire people, do everything they have to do, or they stay a white label and die. There's never been a white label that has succeeded in FX, and I would tell you the same thing about crypto. And the reason is that I can name a few complexities. I'll give you one example, right? I'll give you one just easy example. So you need to manage treasury. No matter what type of connection you have, especially if you're using like a REST API. Let's assume you got a white label with a REST API, even WebSockets, but let's say a REST API.
All right.
Now, you ask anybody in traditional finance if they trade over a REST API, and not only will they laugh at you, but they might punch you at the same time. I don't know what would happen, but it wouldn't be a good scene. No one would send financial data, sensitive financial data, over a REST API. But for some reason, in crypto, that was okay. That was because basically there wasn't professional traders in crypto in the beginning, and whatever. So you have a REST API that basically has a throughput of a 1965 Ford Pinto. And that's what you're transmitting data on. Now, you have to set up a system so that when an order comes through on your exchange, you don't want that client to wait 3 seconds for a confirmation. So you're probably going to have an auto bot that's going to automatically match. Even if it doesn't fill right away at the liquidity provider, you're filling it already. So you're taking risk. And 50% of the time, it's not going to fill at all. So now you're going to have a running exposure that you need to manage. And if you don't pay attention to that exposure, it can cost you thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, or more in a day, in a week, in a month, depending on how much volume you're doing. Now, to manage that, you need to make sure that you have an active connection to your liquidity provider. But if you're funding that with crypto, they may only have a settlement window that happens twice a day. So you're screwed. If you're funding it with fiat and it's a Saturday, also screwed. So just that one element of treasury management is a full-time job. And if you don't understand what treasury management is, or you don't understand it enough to hire somebody who understands it, you will go out of business in 3 months. So it's I'll give you one thing that I used to teach Forex as well, right? I used to do classes. So
I used to teach the technical analysis part of it, not the
fundamentals, technical analysis, and just kind of understanding how markets work in general, right? Like money flow, how to trade without using indicators, stuff like that. So you have an issue where let's assume you're sitting at home. I've said this one, so if anybody's watched my AMAs, they're going to get bored of this one, but I'm going to say it because this is a new audience. So here we go.
We have some audience. I have some of my audience here. They're asking a lot of questions.
So this is, you can tell this one to your trading friends or somebody who wants to become a trader. So you're sitting at a kitchen table and your wife's sitting next to your grandmother, some relative starts to have a seizure. Now, the night before, you read a book called Brain Surgery for Dummies. You didn't really read it. You read like the prologue, 3 paragraphs in, page 72, 85, and 165. That's what you read.
That's hilarious.
And you thought, I got this,
Yeah.
So, you go out to the garage, get a drill, crack your grandmother's skull open because, you read the book and you're fine. Nobody would do that. At least nobody in their right mind.
Right.
But I give you the same scenario as a trader. And somebody will buy a book called Crypto Trading for Dummies. They'll pop it open on the toilet, read 3 pages and go, I got this.
Yeah.
And then proceed to, and I think that same thing happens in many aspects of this business.
That's true.
You need, just like it takes you 8, 12 years to become a doctor or a lawyer, 16 years of schooling, you need to invest lots of time to understand this business.
At least 2 years. At least 2 years.
At least 2 years of really nose in the market, learning and doing. If not, the probability that you will fail is very high. It's hard work. Everything in life everything in life is hard work, to be honest with you, to really get something.
It's true. I mean, I could teach someone how to drive a car in a day. Doesn't mean you can go out and drive it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So I got a question. We hear this phrase a lot in crypto. Do your own research. Do your own research. Everyone says do your own research. No one knows how to do their own research. So please tell us, if you want to, research an exchange, what are we looking for? If you were going to research an exchange, what would be the first thing you'd look at?
So I will, in any business, not just exchanges, but any business, the first thing I always tend to look at, especially nowadays, when it's a platform, I look at reviews. It's the first place I start, right? Now, reviews can be faked, obviously, but same thing, you kind of have to have a pretty subjective mind and look at what other people are saying. Generally, you're going to find some real people there that are telling you about real experiences. If most experiences are bad, then you might not have the best experience. Now, for me as a business owner, every business I've ever owned, one of the focuses I've always had is customer service. Your business is only there to serve customers. That's literally why you have a business. And if you can't keep your clients happy, you shouldn't have a business in the first place. So I always like to dig in and jump in and ask questions. Even if I know the answer to those questions, I ask because I want to see how fast they get back to me. I want to see, and it's one thing when you say, I have $1 million to invest, maybe they get back to you quick, right? But that's not too genuine. I like to go in with I don't try to give away what I may potentially be doing with that business, and that's exchanges included. I ask questions and I wait to see how they respond. There's a saying, I don't remember the exact saying, but it's something along the lines of when you go through a sales process, it's a glimpse into how the rest of the it's a freebie into the rest of how the rest of the operations is going to work. If the sales process fails, the rest is probably going to fail as well, because most businesses put a lot of heightened activity onto sales and then it trails off. If they put a heightened activity onto support, even when sales aren't even included, they're just supporting you as a non-client, that's probably a good sign. So that's usually the first place. Regulation to me, and this is going to sound crazy coming from a regulated exchange owner, is not necessarily something being unregulated. I've traded at unregulated FX brokers. I've invested in unregulated platforms. It's not necessarily a no for me. But what it means when you invest in any business, or whether you're a client or you're actually investing in that business, you invest in the team, right? You invest in the people behind the business. I want to know that the people are there are genuine, that I can talk to them, that they know what they're doing, that they have either experience. I don't really care about schooling. To be honest, in my life, I think experience trumps education almost every time. I've never really met someone that's educated with no experience that does a better job in real life than someone who's, education is great, but experience usually trumps education, at least, especially in finance, to be honest.
Or at least
You know,
self-education.
yeah, exactly. I'm self-educated almost. I didn't go to university. I never studied finance in school. I now do lectures about economics.
Dude,
So you don't.
I never finished high school.
There you go. I did, but almost not. I was too busy with business when I was in high school
Right.
to care too much about high school.
Yeah, I was busy with something else, but okay.
Research simply means, look, everybody has a gut. Your gut feeling, and especially the more older you get, the gut feeling has to be important to you, right? You dig in. Everybody's kind of marker for what they believe is going to be a good decision is going to be different. So I can't tell you what I'm going to look for. It's going to be different maybe for what you look for in terms of that gut feeling. But I would say I want to know that my issues are going to be taken care of. They need to have good support. They absolutely need to have a team behind them that knows what they're doing. I want to know that they're not just jumping into things like Sailor Moon or whatever the thing's called. That they're actually looking at things that they know are going to benefit their user base. That the whole business of finance was always built to kind of screw the user base and benefit the small clubs. And Bitcoin has been made and crypto has been made to kind of reverse that. So I look for businesses, especially platforms in crypto, that have a model that's built to where both sides benefit. I think that's important. Regulation is there as well. I do look at regulation. I like to understand if they know, at least for a minimum, that they understand where the regulation is. If they have a good enough excuse to why they don't need the regulation, that's just as good as being regulated. If they can explain to you, look, we don't need regulation because we did this, we had a legal opinion, and we understand that we're operating outside of the realm, awesome. As long as they understand, that's already a step above the rest.
So I'm going to take questions from the chat. I see a lot of questions in the chat. I haven't seen them all. I did make Gabriel into a moderator. Maybe he can help out because I can't regulate the chat right now because I'm talking to you and my editor's away, which also usually mods my my chat. So now, Gabriel D, you are a new regulator in the chat. So we'll see what's going on with that, and I will get to those questions. I just want to get some of my questions out the way, and also these questions are giving birth to other questions that are really and I really love the way you're answering these. You have a lot of experience, and I also see Kevin already installing Coin Metro, which is really cool. So maybe he can tell me his experiences with it as well. So my questions are, and my other question, talk about regulations and all this, and do your own research. All right, crypto wallets, how about exchange wallets? Are they safe? What keeps them safe? In a regulated and unregulated way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess regulation doesn't necessarily from a tech side make you safer, because the regulation in crypto isn't yet mature enough to include those types of caveats into the licensing. Now, when you talk about licensing for FX and for other, there are lots to do with security, cybersecurity included. When you become a regulated FX broker, hedge fund, bank, there's a subsection to the licensing about sustainability and tech. That doesn't necessarily exist yet in crypto regulation. Maybe in Japan, but only to a certain extent. Everywhere else, not really. It's all about KYC, AML, and kind of running checks and operating at a certain level. So the regulation doesn't really help you too much. What it usually does, though, is that, again, you kind of understand that there's a certain level of fit and properness in the business, which usually means that people are checking their boxes, checking their, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. In terms of security, I look at it like this. Back in the 1800s, people didn't like to put their money in banks because they thought they were unsafe. Why? Because that's who got robbed. Stagecoach robberies, all these things happened all the time because there wasn't enough security. And because there wasn't security, they got robbed. So people said, why would I put my money in the bank if they're going to steal it? Then we had police and FBI and all these guys came out of the woodwork and et cetera. But outside of that, you had insurance. Insurance came into play. People had less of an issue putting the money in the bank. You also had issues where banks had lots of money, so they could cover losses even before the insurance came in. If you're at your house and you put your money in your mattress and somebody steals it, well, I mean, you could have home insurance. Okay, good luck trying to explain to your home insurance that you had money stuffed in your mattress, because if you did that when you got your premium, you would have paid
under my mattress.
Yeah. you would have paid 40 times more for your premium if you would have explained. I can
prove it existed.
yeah, exactly. So I think that the whole not your keys, not your crypto. I understand where it comes from, except I've known so many people that have gotten phished, and so many people that have lost crypto. And yes, there are crypto exchange hacks. they happen. Why? Well, if you're a hacker, why go after one individual when you can go after where all the individual's money are?
Yeah.
It makes sense from a criminal mind standpoint. That kind of makes sense. However, again, when exchanges that operate, and they're not necessarily just regulated exchanges, but when exchanges that operate in at least a somewhat honest way, they want to continue their business. If you're an exchange and you get hacked and you tell everybody, "Oh, sorry, you're going out of business." Simple as that. Your business is done. So if you're looking at the team and you're looking at the size of the business and the team, and you think they value their business, they're probably going to do whatever they can, whatever they have to help you recoup those assets over time,
Right.
if not immediately, to save their business. And we will end up with a regulatory regime that adds in insurance onto crypto. That is coming. And I would say that we're probably less than 48 months. And probably maybe even less than 24 months for that becoming a reality. And I think the US will probably be one of the first to take steps in that direction, at least major steps. You're probably going to see something like maybe Singapore, potentially even a Commonwealth like Australia, or come into the mix, maybe some European destinations, even the UK. But I think one of the major first movers is probably going to be the US. And that's because of the OCC and the FDIC have been kind of concocting something along these lines for some time. So I expect that they're probably going to be one of the first movers. When it comes to, there's another thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, is the learning curve when it comes to crypto. I have hardware wallets. I use hardware wallets, MetaMask, and other things to control some of our cold wallets at Coin Metros, to control access, to have like 5FA. We don't have 2FA, we have 5FA. And that's okay because I understand how they work. But even me that understands how they work, I have had instances where you make mistakes. It happens. Now, there's such a steep learning curve to using those type of instruments, even just regular wallets, understanding about private and public keys, that it puts regular people at high risk. And the exchanges have experience in dealing with those protocols. So from that aspect, you are probably safer at an exchange or a wallet than you are, at least a well-operated one, than you are doing it yourself if you understand nothing. It's it's the same thing. We can come up with a million kind of analogies, like driving a car blind, or again, operating brain surgery on somebody after you read 3 pages out of a book. Those things just bring more risk to the table. So what I would say is it's to each his own, and that's the awesome thing about crypto, is that you can do what you want. If you want to self-host, have at it. Self-host your money, put your money in your own bank. That's great, and it's awesome that you can do that. But if you don't understand how to do that, then
it's
you probably
scary
shouldn't.
in the beginning, man. I mean, I'm pretty tech savvy, and the first time I was using an NOS, it took me a while. I had to look at it again. I'm like, it's like delete your tokens. I'm like, I'm going to delete my tokens, dude. Are you nuts? What if it doesn't come back? Don't worry, you have your 24 key passphrase. No, I don't want to go and put it all
You mean the one I didn't write down?
Yeah, yeah, even that. It's scary. It's scary as shit. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, exactly.
So here's another question. What about transaction fees? Are those tax deductible?
So I'll start with, I'm not a tax professional. I would say, generally speaking, in regulated markets, depending on the market you're in, you can deduct transaction fees. But it depends on the type of market you're in and the country, because it's not all the same. The problem with crypto is that crypto is not broadly understood from a tax level. And the bad thing about, I don't know if there's a good thing about tax officials, but one of the worst things about tax officials is when they first initially tax something and don't understand it, they always go heavy on the no benefit side, which means they're worried about collecting the revenue, not about everything else. And they need to understand it and also get feedback to understand how they can start to bring in things like this with deductions and et cetera. Imagine there's governments right now that tax crypto basically based on capital gains law that fluctuates when you haven't even sold the asset yet. Imagine that you bought Bitcoin at 3K and the next day it's at 50 and you have to pay tax. Maybe your monthly, if you bought it as a company, your monthly tax bill is due, you pay it and it drops down to 10. So I think that, you have to be careful with crypto. I would say definitely talk to a tax professional, but I would say for most countries, it's probably not, and not because it shouldn't be, because it's analog in the analog, the traditional markets definitely is. But yeah, lack of understanding, I think, from most tax authorities.
All right. Do you know of, or does your exchange itself, and 2 more questions, we're going to go straight to the chat after this. I've been promising this for a while. But do you know of, or does Coin Metro accept PayPal?
Not currently. However, I've been in talks with PayPal now for a year. A year ago, they told me their risk threshold had been met, and I said, "Well, how many clients have you onboarded in crypto?" They said one. That was Coinbase. That might have been a year and a half ago, to be fair. They opened up a beta about 8, 9, 10 months ago, something like that, where they started to allow deposits only at a few other crypto exchanges. That beta has now concluded, and now they've just started opening the gates to select merchants that do a certain amount of deposit volume. And we actually finally got an application from PayPal a week and a half ago. So I do suspect by the summer that we will have PayPal incorporated into our ecosystem, along with a few other payment rails to add to the already long list of payment rails.
It's going to be a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Here's my other question. You KYC someone. What do you do with the KYC information? I know a lot of people want to know this.
So that data is stored, according to the regulation, when you become a client of a regulated enterprise in finance, whether that's a bank, whatever it is. Every country can be a bit different. In the US, you have to hold that data for 10 years after the relationship ends. In the EU, it's in Estonia, it's 5 years. It's 7 years in other countries. So it depends on the country, but we have to hold that data. That data is held in secure server and it sits there. Now, I guess a secondary question to that, do we share it with anyone? And we get that question often. So voluntarily, we share that data with no one. The only way we would share that data, so I'll give you two scenarios. One, we have been contacted in the past by law enforcement because someone's being investigated for a crime.
Right.
And the law enforcement has asked for information about a specific transaction. Now, when they know about a specific transaction, that means they've already gotten a judicial order to get the information. We provide the information they ask for because they already have it. They're just looking for confirmation.
Right.
If we're approached by law enforcement or anyone else to ask for information without a warrant for that information, we don't provide that information. We've never provided information to tax authorities. We've never been asked, and we haven't been pushed to provide either, and we won't. Unless we have no obligation to any tax authority. The one, I guess, caveat to that is when you buy securities through our securities marketplace and you're an Estonian resident, there's tax withholding because it's a security. And so we do provide tax withholding information to the Estonian government for Estonian residents that buy securities on our Invest platform. But that's just because it's a stipulation in the regulation.
So we have 65 concurrent viewers I see here right now, and 65 signups to Coin Metro. Based on that answer alone. All right. So here's here's a question for you now. If you had to use an exchange, not Coin Metro, which exchange would you use? And why?
Good questions. Good question. So I actually have one account at one exchange, and it's the only exchange account I still have, and it's Kraken. And I'll tell you why. So like everybody else, like I said, I like to get in. I've bought assets and done OTC deals on assets that aren't available on Kraken. And, like everybody else in this industry, you kind of have your ear to the ground, and I find things I like. And if I can't get them listed myself in time, I will find ways to purchase them. However, when I look at for me, the end game of all end games and everything finance, again, is doing things the right way. And I'll give you like Coinbase, for example. Coinbase is regulated. I think they do a lot of things the right way. I don't necessarily care for the business practices, but I see their IPO as a cash grab before getting out of retail and going all institutional. And that's not a bad thing on the business side. I mean, great for them and great for their investors. But I think they will slowly leave retail because retail is expensive. And, Coinbase has historically been this onboarding for people who have no idea what they're doing. They overpay, then they realize what they're doing, and they leave Coinbase and pay less elsewhere. Yeah. And Coinbase understands that at some point that market's going to dwindle. And so they've slowly but surely been getting into custody and other like institutional like markets. So I've never been a fan of Coinbase from a client standpoint, even though it ticks a box for me that I do think they do things, generally speaking, from a legal and regulatory side on a high level. So, but I've never had a Coinbase account and won't open one. Gemini and these other exchanges that are regulated, I look at their platforms and their features and what they list, and I don't really see I'm not compelled. And I can't say I was compelled for Kraken, but at the time when I opened the account, I had listened to a few interviews from Jesse Powell, and I like Jesse. He understands regulation. He's not pro-regulation, but he understands that it's needed to progress and to make this market the best market it can be.
Right.
And for that is why I opened the account at Kraken and why I continue to use it on occasion. I just used it a few weeks ago to liquidate some USDC, for example. And so I still have a Kraken account. It's the only one I have. And yeah, for me, it's just, I tend to have a kinship with the owner. And I think that he does things in what I would call a nice middle ground. He's not out there saying the regulators are his best friends. At the same time, he understands that it is absolutely needed to get this industry where it should be. And
right.
So for that, I stick with Kraken.
All right, good. By the way, the Coinbase IPO you just mentioned, do you think it's going to be good for Bitcoin or bad for Bitcoin? There's two theories out there. One saying that Bitcoin's going to go up because of it, one saying it's going to go down because of it. What do you think?
So there's a lot of talk, especially after all the Elon Musks and all the institutional money that we see publicly going into crypto, into Bitcoin mostly. That's been happening for a while now. But I think people still need to understand that the vast majority of daily transactions, i.e. liquidity into crypto, is retail. It's still retail by leaps and bounds. Absolutely. So it's funny to say this, but there's this hodl. I'm going to go up on a tangent real quick, then I'll come back to the question.
That's fine.
But this hodl mentality, which I guess new people in crypto think is crypto, that's what stocks are built on, is hodling. The only reason the stock market goes up 8 to 12% a year is because 401ks, pension funds, et cetera, buy and hold. They don't sell. There's not a lot of management on those things. It's like grayscale, like the grayscale, Bitcoin. They just buy and hold. There's not a lot of rocket science behind that. That's what most asset managers do in the stock market. The stock market doesn't go up because it's an awesome market. They go up because people hold. It's the same reason, the same mentality that exists in crypto. And institutions don't hold. Institutions profit. So you'll see that the Elon Musks I can guarantee you, if you go into a boardroom and say, first of all, you got your board to agree to spend $1.5 billion on a volatile asset, right? Then it goes up 100%, and you have your next board meeting.
How and they go, so die?
Yeah, no. What the board says is, I'd like a dividend.
Yeah.
I'd like a taste of this. Yeah. So I think institutional money isn't hot. They're not hodlers. They will appear to be hodlers because they want price to rise.
Of course.
But they're not. Retail will always be hodlers. And pooled retail money, pension funds, et cetera, will be hodlers. And so, which is also institutional, but to be fair, it's less institutional than your institutional trader because it's just retail money pooled and being allocated. It's not necessarily what I would call institutional. So anyway, back to the question. So I think from a retail standpoint, retail generally who don't understand the market, doesn't understand markets in general, look at Coinbase's IPO, Coinbase going up in value, crypto should go up in value. I only know about Bitcoin, I'm gonna buy Bitcoin. So in the long run, I think for the industry as a whole, it's a good thing. It's now saying that, look, these guys are serious. The industry is real. There are some real players in this industry making lots of money, and you guys need to pay attention. So from that angle, the IPO is great news, and it's fantastic that it's happening. And I think in the long run, it probably is a blip on the screen. Everybody remembers that, when the first ETF comes out, Bitcoin's going to skyrocket. Oh, when this happens. There's always this, when this happens mentality. No. You know what makes Bitcoin rise? Nobody's selling it. That's what makes Bitcoin rise. And they get nobody to sell it by constantly saying that this next thing is going to make it go higher.
Agreed.
That's all part of the hodl mentality. That's all part of and that's not just crypto.
It doesn't, though.
Exactly. And when it doesn't go up, the guys that created the FOMO, the hodl mentality, are the ones that are selling into the poor guys who just got into the market. So that's how markets work, unfortunately. I mean, we're not going to change that. I wish we could. We're probably not going to. So I would say that you'll probably see volatility around. You'll probably see the exact opposite, which you would expect immediately. So on IPO, Bitcoin will go down, but shortly thereafter, within 48, 72 hours, you'll probably see it stabilize and then head to new highs.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Do you have any predictions about the bull market this year?
So if I put my technical analysis hat on, which I think is a bad thing to do in crypto because there's just not enough data. Crypto hasn't
Maybe
existed
Bitcoin
enough.
only. Just go Bitcoin
Yeah,
only.
yeah.
Forget about all the.
Yeah. So Bitcoin in general, again, it's all about the HODL mentality. It's all about people buying and not selling. That is literally what will get Bitcoin. The whole idea of the stock to flow ratio is absolute nonsense because the daily trading volumes far outweigh what was mined even on day one.
Gotcha.
So the new liquidity that comes in being lower is, again, only a narrative to build hype, to build the HODL mentality. That's what the market's built on. And it's not just this market. All markets are built on hype and FOMO, stocks included. And we've seen that to a big extent this year with the Reddit, with Reddit. You saw that a little bit of FOMO in a forum online caused the company to literally be valued at 100,000 times its real value. And that shows you, that is literally how the market operates. Usually though, it's only three guys, in suits that push markets. Here we had, 100,000 Redditors. So, I think for me, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't really believe in the scarcity argument because there's sats and you can, divisible to 1/100 million. And as Bitcoin gets more valuable, less and less people can afford less and less sats, which means the buying power of the vast retail market is actually getting smaller. It's not getting larger. So I think, and if you look at the kind of wealth distribution in Bitcoin, it's worse than the wealth distribution in the general. I mean, the 1% in Bitcoin holds a massive amount of wealth in comparison to everybody else. So unfortunately, the kind of one of the Bitcoin premises of changing the way, finance.
Like if you give
it's human nature is what it is. Yeah, it's hard to change things like that, not because they're inherently made to be evil. It's because it's based on human nature.
Exactly.
So psychology pushes us all in the same direction always.
People will end up with all the money, and the 98% will have less.
Exactly. So I think Bitcoin is a good asset to have in a portfolio. I don't see, I don't see these 300K this year, etc. I see no reason for that to happen fundamentally or technically, but I don't rule it out because again, it's all about the created hype cycles that get created around crypto. The more the hype cycle, the more retail keeps this kind of let's say correlation between Bitcoin and everything else in crypto, the better it is for Bitcoin actually, because there's lots of really cool things happening in crypto as a whole. There's lots of mid caps, micro caps, and small altcoins that are doing tremendous things, and that actually helps Bitcoin just as much as it helps those assets as well.
I think Bitcoin's become a spendable store of value. That's my own thing on it. It's a spendable store of value. And then you have other coins doing other things. All right, let's go into the chat and see. Hit that like button, by the way. I haven't even asked anybody to do that yet. Hit that like button. I don't see any super chats. Let me go straight to the beginning and see if we have any cool questions. So forgive me, I'm looking over here.
No problem. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. Might be wearing it right now, actually.
Best question I've ever saw. When moon?
Is it spelled W-E-N? Because if not, I can't answer.
It's W-H-E-N.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not as funny that way, but when moon, when you get on the rocket, that's when you hit the moon. That's the best answer for that one.
All right. What's your view on why all those crap exchanges have seen such instant success, especially market cap wise, while a legit business? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so lots of reasons. One, pretty easy to fake volume. In fact, we've been approached by lots of quote unquote liquidity providers that say, hey, we can get you to 200 million a day. It costs 10K a month. Now I can do that myself. I literally, not a programmer, but been around, I can create a bot in 2 hours that can just churn out a whole bunch of volume. We don't do that. And we don't market make our own exchange. We don't do that. Why? There is no benefit to inflating volume to anyone except the exchange owner. There's no benefit to anybody. All it leads to is bad execution, or it leads to instant execution, which at the end of the day is bad for the market anyway, because it's not true execution. You're executing off a fictitious price, and that doesn't benefit anyone anyway. So I think there's a lot of unscrupulous behavior in crypto. It's still a very immature market. A lot of exchanges that are now legitimized were once not legitimate.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are still not legitimate. And even some of the biggest players in crypto, absolutely. Now they might, there's a lot of rumors out there, and I've seen data that I would say almost show me that there's wash trading and that it's systematic. However, to give the benefit of the doubt, it's either they're allowing their clients to do it, which means their technology is not that great. And it also means that they're allowing some of their clients to destroy and wreck some of their other clients, which to me is a pretty bad modus operandi to have as a financial business, especially in crypto. Or they're doing it themselves, which is worse. So, I think sometimes when you see that success, they might not have that much success. They appear to be successful. And sometimes that self-fulfilling prophecy can happen.
Yeah.
So, they pay a service to sow 100 million, 200 million, $1 billion in volume, which you absolutely know they're not doing. And then eventually they actually start to do volume because people are, kind of pulled in with the hook to actually, and again, I think I don't like to operate in that manner. I've been around enough in FX and other markets to understand that doing things the wrong way never leads to a better market for all. It just doesn't. It doesn't even lead to a better market for you. Eventually, the party stops. And so I'm all for working with other exchanges, working with other wallet protocols, and making the market a safer, more transparent, and healthier for everyone. So yeah, and I think a lot of that success is just fake. It's not real.
I can verify that, man, because I know a company that used to pay they used to do it on purpose anyway, through bots, through a company, so that they can keep volume so they can keep their coin listed on an exchange, and the exchange allowed this because in exchange, just pun intended.
Because you get volume.
Yeah,
volume. So full transparency, we have liquidity providers. But liquidity providers are needed. Market makers got a really bad rap in FX, right? Back in the day, they used to call bucket shops, right? The broker that would basically market make into their own order book, we would call them bucket shops and say, oh, they're trading against their clients. At the end of the day, somebody has to trade against you, or you're not going to trade.
Right.
So market makers aren't evil in general. However, when I've talked to 100 market makers in crypto, and I would say less than 5% are actual real market makers. The others literally offer you what would be considered wash trading, front running, and a million other things. It may seem like a good thing on the face of it when someone needs a service. But like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't provide anything for price discovery. It provides nothing for liquidity. It provides nothing for stable price. It provides nothing to the market in general. So yeah, we shy away from that 100%. We do have assets that have their own market makers, and we monitor them. So we make sure that when they're pushing orders, they're not filling themselves, and that any fills are actually happening to non-correlated, non-connected entities. And if we find, which we have on one or two times, where a market maker is filling correlated parties, we shut it down.
Right. Got you. All right, let me see what else we have here. I'm skipping some questions because some of them are just statements.
Okay.
Yeah, well, XRP this, XRP that. I'm getting paid by the Illuminati to keep this down on the low, so I'm not going to say any XRP questions.
Well, it's a good payroll to be on, the Illuminati.
Yeah, dude, they paid me $1 million just the other day, and they said, listen, they're going to ask you about XRP, just don't mention it. Talk crap about it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, it's good ROI. It's good ROI for a few minutes work.
All right, I have to go through these. It's a shame my editor's not here. I would have had a list on my iPad. Where do you see Coin Metro? This is a good one. Moni Kavi. Where do you see Coin Metro in 2 years?
Good question. So I think if I think back from where we were a year ago, so let's say January, Q1 last year.
Right.
Q1 last year, we had just recently gone operational, I think, with our margin platform. We had only been operational with our exchange platform for probably half a year at that point, and we had done no marketing up to that point. And I think our daily volumes were in the 5 to 6 digit range, so small. And fast forward to this year, many of those metrics have gone up by thousands of X's, and the minimal metric is probably 100X. If we talk about clients, volumes, it's all gone up, and it's all gone up very quickly from Q3 last year into Q4 into Q1 of this year. And a lot of that's because, hard work pays off. So, you build and build and build and stick to your plan, and you do things the right way, and things pay off. I think we're on a trajectory that within the next 2 years, we will kind of transform a bit the front face of the company now to be very much, I would say, kind of an omni financial presence. Mm-hmm. So that would be both crypto, both traditional services like challenger bank, neobank services, as well as MTF and CFDs and derivatives trading, as well as passive income generating platforms. So nice. People that don't, we already have staking. We're rolling out an awesome staking platform towards the end of this month as well, where we're doing things with Cadena, with their bonding. And so creating kind of, like I said, passive income vehicles that you don't have to understand so much about how it works. You're just presented with what it does, what you need to do, 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step, and you're done. And you can take part in all these really cool things without having to read 700 white papers or try to understand, or at risk of potentially losing your assets.
Right.
And I look at us kind of like, and this is a bit of a US, I grew up in the US, this is a bit of a US analogy, but like AOL was to the internet back in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. So when I was a kid, I would go out to the mailbox, open the mailbox, and there'd be like I was in my teens, 500 AOL CDs. I don't even know how they stayed in business throughout the first few years, because every day you had like a million AOL CDs. And eventually, I was on the internet. I had a baud modem. I had friends. We used to phone freak on the internet. You can look that up and figure out what that is. But it was a very close-knit community. Nobody was on the internet that I knew really, except for a few people. My mother definitely wasn't on it. AOL changed that. AOL made the internet easy to use. It kind of narrowed the focus.
Yeah.
But you had your mail, your chat rooms, your shopping, everything was right there, and the internet ballooned. And crypto in general has a UX problem. And so we want to be one of those guys that's fixing the UX, taking a lot of traditional things that people know how to use and underpinning them on crypto, so that you don't need to understand how it works, because a lot of people get scared because they say, I don't know how it works, I don't want to use it, which is crazy, because most people don't know how the internet works, their car works, their air conditioner works, but they use it.
Yeah.
But when it's a nuanced product, they want to understand, and if they can't, they feel they might get scammed or something's going to happen. So we want to create that nice UX layer that allows, over the next 2 years, to create a system where anything you can think of in your financial life, whether that be paying a bill, getting a mortgage, getting a loan, anything, you'll be able to do through CoinMetro. It'll all be done some way, shape, or form through some type of digital, tokenized, or crypto asset, and it'll take you a few button clicks. That's the goal, and I think in the next 2 years, we're going to make a lot of that happen.
Nice. Are you planning to add NFTs on your exchange?
NFTs are kind of like DeFi right now. So obviously, we all see the NFT bubble, and NFTs can do so much more than create, shitty, ugly art that sells for $1 billion. The NFT, the non-fungible token is going to come into finance in a big way, because a lot of regulation is around the fact that things become fungible. At the moment an asset becomes fungible, it becomes regulated, because they're all the same. There has to be a way for you to be able to trace. When they're non-fungible, they fall outside of a lot of regulation, meaning if you can find a way to create non-fungible securities, they're actually probably not securities in many parts of the world.
Wow.
So there's non-fungibles are going to do big things. I think currently non-fungibles are kind of like, it's another kind of BS kind of joke in crypto, I think. I mean, people are making money off it. That's great. People are having fun. Great. CryptoKitties 2.0. At the end of the day, though, I think we will end up having NFTs. Absolutely. Will we have like art NFTs? I don't know. If there's demand and there's a demand to have a platform to sell them, we may just go down that road because our clients want it, and we like to do things our clients want. So, but for now, I'm waiting for a legitimate NFT push, and I think that's going to happen probably sometime in 2022. I think we have because of the whole macroeconomic situation in the world, COVID, lockdowns, all these things.
Right.
I think we're going to have an extended period of kind of nonsense, but eventually we're going to come back to reality.
Something that a lot of people say, NFT art, or even art itself, they say, what's the use case? But the use case is just like normal art, and that's moving money around. All right, Kevin, we lost you. All right, so we lost Kevin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through the chat and we'll wait for him to come back. And while we're waiting, let's see who else here is writing. Hit that like button if you're watching this, or if you. Oh, there he is, back already. Okay, so you didn't leave me hanging.
Yeah, connection
Did you
issue,
change
I
your
guess.
shirt?
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a quick wardrobe change. It was
Quick wardrobe change, whatever. So the use case, I was just saying that the use case to NFT art is what art, the use case to art is, and that's moving money around, dude.
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
really,
And,
it is.
yeah, exactly.
With the benefit of it looking nice.
Absolutely. So yeah, but again, NFTs have a good future, I think. Maybe not our current version of NFTs, but definitely NFTs are here to stay.
Marek is asking, will Coin Metro do more buybacks? And if yes, when's the next one?
So I envision yes. I can't tell you when the next one is. Probably if I knew when it was and I told you, it would probably be an issue on the regulatory level anyway. But I don't know, to be honest. We did the buyback because we want to support our community. We have a community that's been with us for years. They were with us through all these ups and downs, and the bear market and crypto winter, and they stayed with us. They were with me every Friday on AMAs, asking questions and being passionate.
Nice.
And so part of that is just new price discovery. Here you go, guys. Thank you. Other part of that is we like XCM and we want to hold it in treasury. And the more XCM we have in treasury, the more opportunities and things that we can offer to the public. And so buybacks are going to be a thing. We will do more of them. We're never going to be able to tell you when, unfortunately, because that would be a bad thing to regulators. That's basically us telling you, if I tell you next Tuesday we're going to do a buyback, that's because I know you may go buy first.
Right.
And that can't happen. So I can't tell you when. And to be honest, right now I don't even know when. What I can tell you is this one we did at the end of a quarter. We had a really good quarter, the best quarter we've ever had, and we figured we'd celebrate, and this is how we celebrate.
Nice. Please talk about new licenses. Robin says, please talk about new licenses you are getting and your plans with them.
Sure. So we recently got EMI, or electronic money issuance agent license, electronic money institution agent license from the Bank of Lithuania. We're passporting that now around Europe. It's under a different brand, but still under the same parent, called Digital Fiat. So Digital Fiat is going to overtake all our fiat operations at Coin Metro. It's also going to allow us to do things like IBAN accounts, debit cards, virtual cards, all those good things. We also are doing the same thing in the UK. We expect to get that license before the summer. That'll allow us to do the same thing with pounds in the UK. We just are about to complete another equity round that's going to fund our next licensing ambitions, which are investment firm licensing for CFDs, derivatives, etc., MTF licensing, and crowdfunding licensing. The crowdfunding license is going to allow us to keep this invest platform, this primary platform, so SMEs can raise capital by issuing debt or equity instruments. So that's going to allow us to keep that operational in Europe outside of the sandbox license we already have. On the back of that, the MTF license will allow us to open derivatives markets for those assets to create more liquidity. So one of the reasons that small, equity markets around the world, Europe and everywhere else really don't have liquidity is because they have a less mature infrastructure than your larger equity markets. They don't have those derivatives, they don't have those repo markets, etc. So there's a company called Ignium, also a shareholder of Ignium. Ignium basically operates a secondary market for tokenized securities, spot market. And Coin Metro is going to offer derivatives on top of that spot market to be able to fuel liquidity into that market with that MTF license. It's also going to allow us in the future to branch off into different markets and do some really cool things. And CFDs, so we'll be able to offer CFDs. We'll also be able to offer FX trading. So you'll be able to go between stable coins offered by Digital Fiat or between fiat, et cetera, all with a few clicks of a button. So if you have a fiat on-ramp that you want to get into, but maybe you want to trade in a regional currency because there's an arbitrage opportunity, you'll be able to do that nice and easy right on the platform without having to use 6 different platforms to be able to get that done. So that's also something. Those licenses, we're in the process now of kind of putting paperwork together. Submission will probably happen in the summer, and it'll take somewhere between 6 and 9 months to be able to acquire and get those licenses up to speed. But we're confident we're going to acquire those licenses. We have a lot of experience around the company of acquiring licenses and working in regulated entities. So Yeah, but that's what's on the horizon currently for us in terms of licensing, and probably will be a few more as we go down the path here and start to expand, especially into different regions around the world.
What about your roadmap, since that's part of it as well? What is your roadmap for the next couple of years?
Well, years. That's
Well,
I don't know if we have enough time to
what's
go
your
over years,
roadmap?
but so we release roadmaps quarterly because usually we pack them tight. So we actually haven't publicly released yet the Q2, I believe, roadmap, but it should be coming in the next few days. Q2, we have a lot of cool things. We have staking coming. We have a comprehensive staking platform, not just for XCM. So XCM already has a lot of utility built into it. An XCM page, which we've been working on now forever, will be coming out this month, so people will be able to read up about what XCM does, how it interacts with our ecosystem. But one of the main things about XCM and what's coming up is XCM will be allowed to be staked, one, but while it's staked, you can still use it for collateral to trade on margin or to get involved in our copy trading system.
Nice.
So which means you can unlock two sources of basically of income, potential income, instead of just locking and having to lock. And you can unlock at any time. You're not penalized. You just earn a smaller interest rate. And since the interest is paid daily, you don't really lose. So you're not locked in for a long period of time, and you can actually still take advantage of using that collateral to trade other assets, which I think is quite unique. So staking's coming. We have our secondary market, which will come out sometime in Q2, probably towards the end of Q2, for derivatives on the assets that we've done bond and or equity raises for. So that's a cool one as well. We have some additional fiat gateways that we're working on that we expect to come out in Q2. We have lots of hiring that's also happening right now, which is also pretty cool. We're going to be doing reskins of a few of our platforms to get them ready now for major pushes, major marketing pushes. That's going to include, we also have, I'm trying to think, we have so many. I should actually take the roadmap out because I usually can go through an interview and never have to look at a single word. But when it comes to lists, I'm always bad with lists. But what I would say is the best way to stay up to date with CoinMetro, because we're always doing lots of stuff, is our Telegram, which is just at CoinMetro, nice and easy. You can also hit me up on Telegram. You guys, if you can see my name, it's Kevin Murcko. It's just, I'm everywhere, Kevin Murcko.
Right
Twitter.
There and right
there you go.
I can't come to your side though, but it's right there.
On Twitter, on Telegram, all over the place, same thing. You can hit me up as well. But I do AMAs every Friday. So every Friday, the thing is, our community is very spoiled because I treat our community like they're a member of our board. So I will come on a Friday and tell them everything that's happening. And now maybe the next week something changes. I used to get a little flack. Like you said last week that this was going to happen. I'm like, yeah, well, this week this happened, and so we had to pivot, and now this is going to happen. And you say, oh, you shouldn't tell us that. But I like to treat our community as, again, like they just sit on the board. So I let everything out. We literally are 100% transparent. So nice. When you want to find something about CoinMetro, know what's happening, hit us up on Friday, 3 p.m. Estonian time at CoinMetro on our YouTube channel. AMAs every Friday, and you can ask questions. You can find out what's happening in the business, or just hit us up on Telegram anytime. So
nice. I'll try and be there myself, actually.
Very cool.
Someone's asking about FLUX. I'm not sure if this is a FLUX coin or something like that. It's by Gabriel. So, do you know it?
Okay, yeah, FLUX. So FLUX is a token from Zell Network, and Zell Network, along with Zell Network and Cadena, we have this kind of trifecta partnership to be able to get both mining and bonding or staking opportunities from those two protocols and bring them to a retail market that kind of dumbs down the experience and allows them to get in with very little investment. So for instance, Cadena bonding, I think requires 50,000 Cadena, which Cadena's been doing quite well recently, now up above €1. So that's 50,000 euro to get involved, but you'll be able to do it on CoinMetro from 1 Cadena. So €1. To be able to pool. So yes, a FLUX is coming. I believe we have FLUX scheduled to go live this weekend. If not this weekend, it might be next weekend, but I believe it's this weekend. So we're working to get the FLUX pairs out along with some additional other cross pairs for some other, and surprise, some additional assets on margin as well, which people have been waiting.
Nice, because Gabriel's asking, actually, I know Gabriel. So I was wondering, he's asking if you can still get it.
Still get
FLUX.
Well, we haven't listed it yet.
Yeah, so probably yeah.
Yeah. So once we list it, absolutely. We haven't listed it yet. But I guess it's probably it may still be available through the Zell network. maybe potentially through their wallet system. I'm not sure, to be honest, but definitely check out Zell.network and take a look.
Hassan Bakari is asking, where can I buy XCM on which app? Well, CoinMetro.com.
At CoinMetro. So our mobile app is getting done a remake. We actually usually tell people to use our mobile browser. I don't tell people to use the app. We're doing a major remake on the app. So mobile browser is fantastic. It's going to be one of the best experiences you ever had on mobile browser. And then obviously from desktop or from laptop or whatever, you can use our web version as well. New app will be coming out towards the middle of the summer, and will be, on par with everything else we offer on the ecosystem.
Lots of compliments. I guess you have good customer service. Those weekly AMAs are golden, man. I used to do that for crypto companies back in the day as well. Everyone thought it was crazy.
Yeah, I've been doing them now. Literally I might have missed 1 or 2 Fridays here and there because I was traveling, but every Friday basically for the last 3.5 years, without fail. So I love doing them though. It keeps me in touch with the community, keeps me in touch with my clients. I have fun. It's fun. I love doing these things, to be honest.
Brian is asking, Kevin, I've heard you will soon partner with German challenging bank. Is that true? What does this mean for CoinMetro?
So I've been in discussions with a German challenger bank. That's correct. I haven't inked the deal yet. So again, we share these things with our community. So like I said, I don't wait until I tell them what's happening. So I can't tell what the name of the challenger bank is because unfortunately we do have an NDA. But we are in communication. They've been trying to negotiate. And the point is I have a low threshold, and I'm not going to go beyond that threshold because at that point it's not a business for us. And so but we're also in communication with 3 other platforms to use our APIs to do something very similar with different apps. So we are going to launch a B2B page this quarter as well, which will include this widget API, which allows both on mobile and through an SDK and or on a web app, other companies can actually just integrate crypto and give like a 30-second window all-in price to their clients. And so that's definitely that is lots of companies are going to pick that up. So we don't know what's going to happen with the German challenger bank right now. They're still kind of trying to push me down a bit lower, and I'm just unwilling to go from where I am currently. So we'll see what happens, but we still are in talks. That's for sure.
All right, here's another question from Nick Alim. I'm gonna have to ask this, man. How do I become a multimillionaire? Because there's already a millionaire. How do I become a multimillionaire? I have 1,000 right now. How would you train and learn trading in my pants?
So both Paul and I could probably teach you some trading tips, but that might take longer than we have left. So
I don't know if it's in his pants.
Yeah. So $1,000. So what I would say, obviously I've known a lot of people in this market that started with less than that and made it into multi-millions. And they'll tell you that it comes from, diamond hands and all these things. It also comes from a lot of luck. And it also comes from being a bad trader, because if you are, and a bad investor, to be honest, because a good investor, when they hit even 30% ROI, takes something off the table.
Of course.
If you're at 10x and you haven't taken anything off the table, you're a bad investor. Now, you may still become a multimillionaire because you get lucky.
Yeah.
But so you have to kind of look. It's possible, absolutely, but don't make that your goal. Make your goal making that 1,000 into 1,100 or 1,050, and then make your 1,050 into 1,075. And make 1,075 into 1,100.
Perfect advice.
That's what you want to do.
Really good advice. And then compound over time.
Exactly. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, according to Albert Einstein. So he was a pretty smart guy. I would listen to him. Do math. I'm not going to do the math for you but it's surprising. Go on your calculator. Start with a penny.
Yeah.
1 cent and double it.
Keep doubling.
And act like these are days. Pretend these are days, and watch how quickly that penny becomes more money than even exists in the entire world. You'll be very surprised. It won't take you long. Just hit that multiply button.
I think it's 7.
You'll get it.
At 7 or 8, I think there's another one. If you take a piece of paper, and you try folding it in half each time, you won't be able to fold it up more than 7 or 8 times. I can't remember the number.
Yeah, you get to that point where now you're just bending it.
Jens in Denmark is asking, "Where's my dog?" Talking about my dog, I guess, or is it your dog? Do you have a dog?
No, I do. I do have a dog. Yeah, but it's in Talon.
All right. So talking about my pit bull. I have a pit bull. So my pit bull sleeping. Is still going for the Dogecoin, man. Ask if will list XRP. They already have XRP listed.
Yeah, we never delisted it, so it's been listed.
Listed. Alex, that was talked about already. XRP is okay. No good. All right, a whole bunch of XRP questions. All right, so I got a question. What's one question you wish people asked you, but they seldom do?
That's a really good question, actually. So I'll see if I can narrow this down to one question, but I think I love the questions. I love questions generally that lead to very insightful answers. So many people never ask the right question to understand like how things work, or to lots in crypto say when moon, they want to know, where's Bitcoin going to be? When's Bitcoin going to be 200K? When's this asset going to double? And they don't ask the real questions that they should ask, which is why is that even possible? And is it sustainable? And so I try to sit in a very weird place, which is obviously I own an exchange. I've owned FX broker in the past. I've dealt a lot in traditional finance. I dealt a lot now in non-traditional, which will eventually become traditional finance. And I try to look at things from all angles. So I understand this kind of need and want to, invest in something that's going to 1000x. I get it. Everybody wants to do that. But I think if you fail to understand why that's even possible, why it happens, you're going to end up in ruins. So I think the question I would love somebody to ask, at least just from a high level, is, how do markets actually function? And why is it even possible for this asset to go 1000x? What are the mechanics that need to happen for that to happen? And, is this sustainable? Is the crypto market today going to be the crypto market, 5 years from now? I think questions like that are ones that I really like to get, because they make people think. And again, for me, I became a much better trader when I understood the mechanics of markets, not how to read a chart, not about the fundamentals, but really how markets operate. And markets operate much in a more simpler fashion than I think most people realize. And they're highly manipulable. All markets are highly manipulable. Crypto is absolutely manipulable to an nth degree. It is a very small market. It is manipulable beyond no one's imagination. And I think, you understanding human nature and how human brains work will get you to be a better trader far quicker than understanding how to read a Gann chart or Wyckoff analysis.
Right. Sure. So let me ask a couple of questions about you, man, because I didn't do it in the beginning. I don't like doing it in the beginning. I like doing it towards the end, because people are always interested in what's in it for them. And it's just, I'm not attacking anybody. It's just human psychology. They want to know, get straight to the point, what they want to know. But I want to ask about you, for the people that are still here. I want to ask about Kevin. So let's do this. If I met you in high school, what would I think about you?
Wow, that's a good question. So in high school, I had, a small group of friends. I wasn't a nerd per se, but I did very well in school without having to do much. I just had a really good memory, and I understood, I think from a young age, I understood that I didn't want to work hard. I wanted to work smart.
Yeah.
So my dad and my mother worked hard. And I saw that I didn't want to do that. That wasn't something I wanted in my life. So I tried to always figure out ways to work smart, do the littlest possible work with the best possible outcome. That doesn't mean cheating. That doesn't mean, that literally means looking at a problem, and instead of going around it to solve it, you go right to the point, right? You jump right in the middle. And so I did very well in school. Like senior year of high school, I think I showed up 20 days out of the year, and I still passed. And the reason for that I had opened a business in high school. I had a cell phone kiosk. I won't go into the whole thing, but I had businesses in high school. I was kind of a business boy, I guess. I thought I was a businessman, not really. Made a lot of mistakes. But I think you probably would have thought that, I don't know. I think I generally was very hardworking. I focused on what I wanted. I didn't go to parties. I didn't go to social events. I didn't go to the sport events. I didn't go to homecoming. I didn't go to even graduation. I was working.
Right.
So I think it was probably, this guy's either going to work himself to death by the time he's 30, or, good things are going to happen, I guess, is probably what most people that knew me would have thought. And maybe if you didn't know me, maybe you thought it was going to turn into, maybe I was like an outcast or something. I really wasn't. I was quite personable, but I generally kept my focus on my goals and didn't really, I didn't try to be that, popular person. And I did play sports. I played a bit of sports, played some basketball, played a little football, American football for those that might be in Europe. But I never, as soon as the game was over, practice was over, I left.
How'd you get into crypto?
Got into crypto I read the Bitcoin white paper literally in 2009. I was living in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Yeah, about 4 or 5 months after it came online, somebody sent it to me. A friend of mine said, you should read this. I read it. The first thing I thought about was capital markets. Literally the first thing I thought about was, wow, this is going to change the way that settlements happen around the world, and all these antiquated things that happen in capital markets. So I started mining Bitcoin on an iMac in the corner of the office I had in my house in Cabo San Lucas, and mined, I'm going to say 250 Bitcoin or something on an iMac, no pool, nothing.
Wow.
Or maybe 300 or something. I think I'm trying to remember what I think it was 150 Bitcoin at the time. I don't remember what the reward rate was, the block reward was. It was 100 or it was, anyway, in a relatively short amount of time, I had a couple hundred Bitcoin. Of course, at the time they were, not worth much. Yeah. And I was personally involved in Bitcoin from that start, in crypto in general, just reading about it, trying to understand, trying to see where it was going to go. From a business standpoint, 2013, at my FX broker, I started getting lots of clients asking if they could trade Bitcoin. And because we weren't a market maker, I had to find a place that could price us. And that was impossible. So there was Bitstamp had a REST API, and Huobi had a REST API. We did tests to connect the REST API to our infrastructure, which we had to build because all we were using was Fix at the time, like everybody else. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but all I remember is it was like one tick every 7 seconds.
Wow.
And the difference between ticks was like a percentage point, it was massive. So there was no way to do this. And at that point, I tried to figure out a way, couldn't do it, shelved it until 2017. 2017 is when I really started to kind of delve in from a business angle. That's when I decided I wasn't going to do an ICO with CoinMetro. I was going to bankroll it to myself and 2 other investors. Then the ICO bubble happened, and we thought, well, why not? I mean, as a business owner, you'd be an idiot not to go out.
You're kidding me. I was thinking about doing my own as well.
Yeah, but to me, one of the things that pushed me into crypto, the main thing that pushed me over the edge was community. So it sounds kind of corny, but in FX, and you'll know this, in FX, everybody's a salesman, and everybody sells the same thing to everyone else. And the guy that's getting sold to knows he's getting sold the same thing, and the guy selling it knows the guy he's selling to knows he's selling the same thing, but they still do it. And so, like, everybody uses the same technology. They all get the same liquidity, and they just sell it back and forth. And it became monotonous to me. And there wasn't like this camaraderie. I only had maybe 2 or 3 other CEOs of brokerages that I would talk to, where we had a bit of a camaraderie and we would help each other out. Everybody else was kind of cutthroat, even though it didn't serve it didn't even serve their end goal. They would still act like they didn't want to share information. Yeah. And when the first time I went into a crypto meetup. Even though everybody else was, man bun, t-shirt, and tattoos, and I was, bald and had like a suit jacket on. I felt this kind of camaraderie and community that even though we were competing against each other, everybody wanted to help to make the industry, blossom. And I thought that was fucking amazing. Nice. So on that point is really what put me over the edge. And that's why the ICO was about, yes, we can get money, which is great because we need it. But these people have the opportunity then to make money, and we don't have to give up equity. So on the business side, it's amazing. And on the other side, you're building an ecosystem that helps everyone profit from the growth of the business. And I thought that was also amazing. So that's kind of what pushed me over the edge.
So do you have any habits or morning rituals?
Yeah, well, so I wish I had a picture, but so the apartment I have in Talon, let's say this is the apartment. So I have my bedroom upstairs. So I wake up, I grab my phone. That's probably what everybody does. I go through Slack, Telegram, and WhatsApp to make sure that the house didn't burn down or, something happens. As soon as I know there's no major issue, I get up. I put on, a pair of pants and a t-shirt. I have about 400 of these. They're all different. I have memes, all kinds of things. Crazy. So I put on a t-shirt, brush my teeth, wash my face, walk downstairs, make a Huel shake, because that's my breakfast. And then I go through this very small door that's about a little less than 1 meter tall. It's on the side of my kitchen. It looks like a vault door. I open it up, I walk in, I'm in my office. Okay. And we have about a 360 square meter, 3-story office that's connected to my apartment in the same building.
Oh, wow.
I go into the office. I don't put on shoes. Sometimes I don't put on socks. If it's not summer, I don't even put socks on. But in the winter, I at least put socks on. I get into the office, get behind the computer. My workday starts. And then that's usually somewhere around 8 a.m., 8:30, 9. Sometimes if I had a really late night, it might be a little later than that. And then around 8 p.m., I head back home through the same little door, try to have dinner with my family, spend a little time with my daughter, and then do the same thing the next day. That's pretty much, I try to keep my schedule as, I don't know, my personal schedule as tight as possible, because I devote a lot of my time to CoinMetro, to my business, and you know, I want to make sure that, you know, I feel like everybody involved, whether it's community, whether it's our employees, whether it's even, you know, even people like you, Paul, that spend your time to kind of talk to us. I feel that I'm doing everybody a disservice if I don't focus my full kind of brunt of energy on making sure that this whole thing is a success, right? So that's what I do. I don't really have much of a routine. I became a sauna addict after living in Estonia. When I was a kid, my mother lived in a condo that had a sauna. I thought it was a closet. So it was in a clubhouse. You know, I thought it was a cedar closet. And I remember going there one day and seeing an older gentleman go into the sauna. And I was like, why are you going in the closet? Like, you know, the towel on. And he says, it's not a closet, it's a sauna. I said, what's that? I said, come inside. And we sat in there for like 20 minutes and it was hot, obviously. And I said, why would you sit here? This is stupid. And I left. Never went to sauna again in my life. When I came here, I started to get into sauna. Oh, not here, I'm in Mexico right now. But when I was in Estonia, I got involved in sauna culture. 110 degrees Celsius sauna, 20 minutes. And then jumping into, you know, 3-degree water and sitting there for 10 minutes. It is absolutely amazing. So that's definitely something I do to unwind. It's the only thing I do in my life that I really feel distresses me, 100%. So I would recommend it. If you've never done it before, get into it. And this is Celsius, by the way. It's not 110 degree Fahrenheit. That's amateur. 90 to 110 degrees Celsius sauna, wet sauna. Sit in there until you feel like you are absolutely going to die. Of course, if you have a heart problem or something, don't take my advice. I don't want anybody dying, but you know, if you're healthy, go in there until you can't take it. Literally, you're like, I can't take this anymore. Gradually build your way up to 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And then cold water. I've literally almost ice water. Do that 3 times. You'll feel like a new person, all stress gone. It's amazing.
Or you'll die of shock.
Or you may die, but then you'd have no stress either. So I guess it's still a win situation in some way.
So advice for people that want to become successful in this industry, what do you recommend people to do to actually find success in crypto?
Be humble. Understand that just like if you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, anything, it requires time and it requires learning. You may get lucky first off, and that luck may lead to an ego, and that ego will lead to you losing money, guaranteed. So be humble, learn, ask questions. Don't feel stupid to ask questions. If you ask questions to the wrong person, if somebody makes you feel stupid for asking a question, ask somebody else. As simple as that. Ask questions, be humble. When it comes to life, I've been around for 40 something years now, and my whole premise on life with success is this, regardless of what you do. If you give up, you don't succeed. I've met people that are dumb as rocks that are more successful than anyone I've ever met, and I've met people that are the smartest people, the most intelligent, mindful people I've ever met that never get to success. And the only qualifier between the two is that the guy was the dumb guy, let's say, the guy that's not so smart, wasn't smart enough to quit and eventually made it to success. Sometimes you need to be dumb enough to not quit. So when you have something that you want to do, you need to focus. You need to do it. No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
There's no free lunch. There's nothing easy in life. When something is easy, it goes away just as easy. So the do your own research is kind of a cop-out because anybody can say that.
Exactly.
But literally, find a plan. And when you have a plan that you feel comfortable with, you stick to the plan. The plan is not always going to work. The plan may fail. It's going to fail probably more than once, actually. But when you have a plan, you stick to it. That's how you get success. That's what it's about. That's the meaning of success, I think.
Got you. Your camera froze, by the way. I'm not sure. Can you still hear me? All right, so we just lost Kevin again, so let me see if you have any questions here. By the way, if you just heard a dog barking, that would be Diaz, that would be my pit bull. He's shouting, list Doge, do you have Doge listed, and so on. I don't see many more questions to the chat. I will add something on that, stick to the plan. Plan your work, then work your plan. That was told to me by a mentor a long time ago, multi-millionaire, about how I should do it so I can make it. And basically, I think Kevin should be right with us again. Oh, what just happened here? Okay. We had a glitch, but we are back. Welcome back.
Yeah, you can't have a live stream without at least 2 or 3 drop-offs. That's
Of
just
course
that's,
not.
that's
Of
how it
course
works.
not. And I was just telling them on what you just said, since you said it. First of all,
Yeah.
I said, plan your work, then work your plan. That's what a mentor told me. And also, I really like the ask somebody else. I really like that. That actually just stuck with me. It's some
It's just
simple
like
things like that.
always get a
that
second
makes
opinion.
so much sense.
Yeah. Life is simple, I think. At the core of it, life is very simple. We overcomplicate life because we're humans and we overcomplicate everything. And I've seen all these things like The Secret and, the universe will give back to you.
Sure.
I don't necessarily believe it's that simple, but in some ways it is. All that simply means is if you're devoted and you do what you need to do and you don't lose sight of a goal, you will reach the goal. What I've learned is you need to be very careful on how you perceive your goals. I'll give you an example. If you say, I want a new car, that's your goal. And you work and work and work towards it, you will get that new car, I guarantee you. But if you're not specific with what car you want and what goal that specific goal, you may end up with a car you don't like. And that's a very simplistic way of saying it. But if you have a goal, I want to be successful is not a goal.
Right.
It's not a goal. I want the ability to spend more time with my family because I'm financially free is a goal. Now, what does that mean though? What's the financially free part? Does that mean 1 million? Does it mean 10 million? Does it mean 100,000? Everybody's goals are different. You need to be very clear in your own mind what that goal is, then focus on that goal, and you will achieve that goal if you don't give up. But I can guarantee you there'll be bumps in the road, there'll be cliffs, you'll fall down, you'll get battered, you'll get bruised. Life will beat you up.
Yeah.
Because life is kind of like a video game or like or anything else. Video game's a good example. To win the video game, you're going to get beaten up on the way, right? It's not just going to breeze right through it. And that's the test. That's the test that life gives you. If it was easy, then there'd be no such thing as success because there'd be no such thing as failure. Simple as that. It's not easy. Nothing's ever easy, but it is simple.
Kevin, 3 rules of success.
Never give up. I think 3 words. Yeah. I think is pivoting is not giving up. I'll just state that.
Yeah, of course.
But some people don't necessarily put those 2 together. So I want to open a coffee shop. Then you find out there's 3 coffee shops and that they're selling the same coffee cheaper than you. Well, fine. I'm going to sell imported teas because I found out that that's what my clients want. So I pivot. So pivoting is fine, but just never give up. When you give up, you're guaranteed to lose.
That's rule number 1. Rule number 2.
Rule number 2 is, again, be very specific in your goals.
Okay.
To yourself. And it may sound crazy or kind of like, I don't know, spiritual or something, and you can take it any way you want, but you need to be very clear with yourself what you want. If you don't know what you want, you're never going to achieve it.
Okay. And rule number 3.
And rule number 3 is be humble. So not everybody reaches success. And as you're getting there, you'll be mentored and you'll be given really great advice by other humble people that have already made it. And make sure you carry that on with you, because what the world doesn't need is more rich assholes. So, do your thing, become great at what you're doing, enrich your life, but be humble.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. This was an amazing live stream. I really had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Super excited. Kevin, really, thanks a lot, man, for doing this. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Paul. Very much appreciate it as well. And
for you guys watching, check out coinmetro.com. Do your own research the way that Kevin told you how to do it in the interview. We will have timestamps sometime next week when my editor gets back. And if you like what you see, you want to see other interviews, 1-minute videos, and more stuff, check out some of those videos. And if you like them, subscribe down below. And thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.